All right. What's going on, YouTube? We're going to do a check-in here. Let this thing get warmed up. Let people drop in before we get started. Thanks for checking in when you do check in, though. And all those that see us in the recording. What's going on? Hope everybody's having a good winter. Winter kind of disappeared around here the last week. Looks like maybe it might show back up next week. But, man, it's warm. Like short sleeve weather warm the last couple days. Even last Saturday was really warm, really nice, really good stuff. But what's going on? Everybody in full on panic mode. It seems like some of us are in full on panic, or um, some of us are in full on prep mode, though, too, you know. So that's what we'll talk about tonight, the issues at hand, as in the description box. Real quick, I won't take up too much time. This isn't going to be a long one. I still have neglected to get involved in the uh, how to do a live chat from the desktop because since YouTube changed their whole thing where you have to download a third party platform, I haven't even tried to figure out how to do that and host a chat like people are doing. So it'll just be me. I'll figure out in the future, hopefully, but we'll work on that. Sorry about if anybody's inconvenienced or upset that there's not others in here running their mouth. But it is what it is. Say what's going on, Angel? How you doing? Irish USMC, what's up? M Long, you went to the rally today in Kentucky. All right, I saw some good pictures out of that. Like guys in full kit in the Capitol building. That's some next level stuff right there. That was pretty cool. But yeah, looked like it went pretty well. M Long, I saw. I think it was Thomas Massey's tweets out of there. He was there, I think. I don't know if anybody else was of significance, but hey, it's the calm before the storm because, like in Virginia, they're not going to listen. They're going to do what they're going to do, but at least you warned them and you prepared the ball for them, right? You said X plus Y equals Z, you know, and that's the way it is. Your conscience is cleared because you fully warned them. Sigma Tactical, good evening. How you doing? Hey, I'm just waiting for dinner to get ready. I've got some time here for dinner to cook up, and so we'll get into the main subject here. But we're going to go deep conspiratorial on you. We're not going to talk about the facts. We're not going to do just the facts. We'll talk about facts, but how do those facts lead to conspiracies, right? A lot of stuff around this virus out of China, right? Tons of conjecture, tons of issues as well, tons of things that don't add up, um, tons of things that don't make sense, and that it seems like there's information being suppressed, and we're not getting the full picture, right? Indeed, not getting the full picture. I got a link below. If you haven't seen it, there's a link below to a GIS service hosted by Johns Hopkins University on on all the official reported numbers of the virus. So it's the official picture snapshot at this time, reported sick, deaths, and people that have recovered. And we're up over 11,000 now reported sick, and over 200 dead, and just over that same number have recovered. So almost the equal numbers recovered as have died officially, which is disturbing in when you talk about virus world. That's a pretty high kill rate. But obviously, the lockdown in China, the full quarantine is suspect. And are they able to accomplish it? That's another problem. But even to trying to implement it has got everybody's radar up. 50 million plus people in this province, and you're trying to quarantine the whole thing. That's more than the state of California population wise, right? Can you imagine trying to quarantine California? You know, the cities is one thing, but then trying to quarantine out in the hinterlands and the back country areas, like, are you kidding me? um Very unusual activity and very concerning, because that's a big red flag that China is going into that mode, um when they didn't do it for the previous viruses, and it looks like this one's much worse, and they're taking extreme measures, which everybody kind of wants to deny, but yet everybody wants to try to write it off that hey, it's no big deal. But then you got people that are going high and to the right about it because they should, right? It's now quickly turned into a human to human contact, um, very quickly. We're just over a month since reported the first case. We're at a month and a half or whatever, and it's already in significant human to human, which means mutation. If if it's a true natural virus, right? That's the other conspiracy that came out today. So any of you on the Twitter, or even if you're not on the Twitter, on the internet, Zero Hedge posted an article today that Indian scientists found an HIV protein inside in their study, in their mapping out of the virus to determine, how to kill it, how to track it, how to trace it, and all this other stuff, right? What mutations had it went through, and they think that they found a HIV protein that had been locked in, which signified genetic engineering and that it was a bioweapon. Zero Hedge posted it on Twitter. Twitter banned them. Twitter has took down Zero Hedge's account on Twitter. They got over the. Did they get over the radar? Are they over the target? Well, dang, if it doesn't seem like it, for one, because the virus so quickly went from animal to human, supposedly animal to human to human to human. Um, Now, what protein in the HIV virus would you want to attach to a bioweapon to make it significantly more weaponized, right? HIV, for the most part, is very delicate. It's not it doesn't withstand a lot in the environment. So that's not it. Um, it's not, it reproduces fast once they get in there. Now, what if the key is if the thing they took out of the HIV is the part of it that attacks the immune system? What if that's what they took out? And maybe that's why, in particular, they are now saying that the virus is, you can catch it without the person being symptomatic. Traditionally, viruses and big viruses like this, the person has to get symptomatic and have a fever, has to have a real high case viral load, and it has to basically explode into the system to catch it from somebody else. The HIV thing, when it attacks the your T cells and stuff, it hides and it's able to move around. And people, that's HIV is also catchable when people aren't showing symptoms. Remember that? Um, well, uh, just makes you think, right? I don't know if the India thing is true, but talk about things adding up. Another thing that came out about this today that Christine on Twitter pointed out, which is there was a military games, like a military Olympics in Wuhan in the middle of December. It ended the middle of December, almost exactly the same time as the first case popped up. So all these military branches came into China from all over the world, all of these different countries, military athletes participated in games and left. If you wanted to attack China, you insert a virus into one of your athletes, you have them go down to China and drop it in there, right? Or you can believe that China had an accident and they released it from their own biolab. That's a little bit easier to believe, I think, than somebody's infecting their athletes, drop them in there, and they spread it in the population or in a couple select locations while they're there. So they're their own bioweapon, right? You have a person that is a bioweapon themselves, because as they've shown in a couple people that have recovered, a real healthy person who has a strong immune system with this, it seems, is able to not show signs and symptoms, right? So a real healthy, strong athlete's not going to show signs and symptoms, especially in the early stages. And then they get back home and maybe, and if they're in the military, especially if they're in one of the bigger country militaries, they go home, they died, never gets reported, right? We have soldiers all the time in the covert ops world that could die all the time that you never hear about. This would be a similar one. So that's how deep the rabbit hole is getting on the interweb in particular, but also in the brain housing group, trying to process it all. Now, if somebody drops something like that intentionally, um, that's the equivalent of dropping a nuclear bomb. Somebody commented on Twitter that they should just drop a nuclear bomb on China if they prove that it was from that biolab, or whatever. If it comes out it was engineered, essentially, if you do this on purpose, if you drop a virus like this, it's the equivalent of dropping a nuclear bomb. It is a last resort weapon because once you put it out there, you have no control over really the numbers and the quantity of people that are dying. You're killing mass numbers of people, and you have no control over it once you put it out there. Um, you know, so it's really a last resort weapon, which kind of made you look at what's going on in the world, right? So that kind of leads me to believe it's not an intentional release because it is so uncontrollable, and it doesn't seem like things are so bad that and so out of control that the powers that be would want to drop a nuclear bomb in this form of a bioweapon at this time. That doesn't seem realistic, right? You do the Occam's razor thing. The most likely answer, is the easiest or the easiest solution. So that doesn't seem like where we're at. Um, the stock markets had really bad shockwaves. I got the post below. The big thing with the stock market dropping is the price of oil. Now we know oil drives the train and oil drives the US dollar, right? Or the US dollar drives the oil, whichever way you want to look at it. They're tied together directly. Oil has fallen through the floor. We were talking $75 oil over a month ago. Just over a month ago, we were looking at $75 oil, and now it's almost below $50. I think it closed today at like 51 something. And there's a link below to the final closing price and the movement in the oil market the last few weeks or so. Um, Now they're saying that oil market's dropping because potentially this virus is going to hinder economic activity and production and all the third order effects that people stop moving, which has happened. All these planes have stopped going to places. All this travel has stopped. All this business has stopped. All this manufacturing has stopped. So oil, you would think, would be less in demand. Or is it the other way around? The oil market cratering is because the economy is really jacked up to begin with, and this is just an example of that, and the virus is just a cover. It's just a small blip on the radar. We really won't know until it's all cleared up, right? Um, just like the impeachment seems to be a sideshow, and then you had people saying they killed Kobe to cover up the impeachment or to cover up something else. There's all kinds of stuff going on out there, but this impeachment thing seems to be blowing over now that it's finally the sideshow is over. So what were they trying to cover up with the impeachment? Well, the impeachment's ending, the virus is picking up. I think they're both covering up the economy being so bad. That's my mind. That's where I'm at. But we continue to evaluate. You never know until it's all kind of continues to evolve and work out. I continue to try to remind people that this whole impeachment thing is tied to the European Central Bank trying to undermine the Ukrainian sovereignty and trying to steal Ukrainian farmlands from them. It all comes back to central bankers, and the impeachment's directly tied to that. And Biden is a banker, um, and Trump's in bed with all of them. So it's interesting how that's working out. That's very funny how that is working out. So more to follow and continue to track and try not to get too indulged in the whole thing where the politics is just the distraction from the real things going on behind the scenes on who's exerting power over whom. You know what I mean? It's like this fake peace plan that Trump floated out there that means essentially nothing, and it was never going to be legitimately considered by anybody. And the Palestinians rioted in the streets for whatever reason and were manipulated to get violent with it or whatever. It's like part of the game. There's people stop playing the game. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I hope everybody's tracking. It is hard to track, but this virus is definitely something, as I talked about in the last video, if you've got any type of preparedness, you should have been, somewhat aware of what some of the needs were, sanitation protocols, masks, what you might have to do in a pandemic. We've talked about it before and other times, just it's one of those things stays on the back burner until it really breaks out. But all your food preps and all that stuff will come in handy when you want to shelter in place for a week or so and let it blow over your area if it comes through your area. I think I saw Mule Team pop in there. Yeah, you guys got was it two or three cases in Illinois? Three cases in California. They just confirmed another case in California this evening. And that's another thing about this whole thing. Um, there are tons of lab tests, not tons, hundreds of lab tests that went to CDC, right? And they said it only takes, there's short turnaround. They're going to the top of the list, and the CDC is the only place this virus is being tested at officially because they don't have the method to do the test out to all the other labs that are out there in the states, right? And the number of there's been like no reporting on lab tests, positive or negative. You'd think if there were a bunch of negatives, they would come out and be saying, "Hey, we had 50 tests come back today, are all negative." Crickets, nothing, zero. Today there was one positive came out of California. What's up with that? Talk about not enough information going out. You don't throw us information, we'll put our conspiracy thin on it because it looks like you're trying to hide something, right? Definitely seems like you're trying to hide something. Are they getting a bunch of positives and retesting them to make sure and they're just doubling their diligence, or are they retesting negatives, or they're not saying? But from what they said originally, the test has taken far too long compared to what they said at the beginning. It's been a whole week. We've had one more positive test and nothing on the negatives. Zero. I don't think there's been a single release on how many people tested negatives, right? Um, so that's suspicious. And then you got the plane that flew back from Wuhan from the State Department. It's quarantined in March Air Force Base. So you assume those are all government employee types. They got them locked down on March, going through. They said they're going to keep them there 14 days, right? So they're locked down for 14 days under in a March Air Force Base, which isn't the worst thing. Being on an Air Force base is cush living compared to some conditions you could be in. But that's interesting that they've taken that measure, and and of course today they announced that they're shutting off a bunch of travel. No Chinese nationals can come into the country. Nobody who's traveled to China who is not an American citizen can come into the country. Only if you're an American and you've been to China in the last 2 weeks, you go under observation, and they call it a voluntary quarantine. Basically, they want you to stay in your home when you go home and ride it out for 2 weeks or whatever period of time it's been since you've been to China. So that's very interesting. Um, Hopefully, it makes things easier at the airport. But the lack of information on these tests that are getting done, and no more information coming out, and the tests taking longer is making people very suspicious. And the more they drag the feet, the more suspicious people are going to be. And now we're in the weekend. Do they think it's just going to blow over? Do you think people are going to forget? Or we're going to be back on their case on Monday going, "Hey, what's going on? What are you guys hiding?" Right? All right, I've ran my mouth enough. Let me see who checked in. I appreciate everybody for listening and commenting. Look like you guys are having a good conversation out there, which I appreciate. It's probably more important what you guys talk about than what I talk about. But just throwing some ideas out there and some of the discussion. People's minds are really getting uptight about this, with the whole, the militarization, weaponization of this thing potentially, or rumors. When Twitter shuts down a Twitter page like Zero Hedge, that's not a small page. That is a lot of people following that. So that makes the conspiracy minds go even crazier, right? Um, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But we got Mule Team showed up. She Wolf, how you doing? HIV, scroll back, talking about the HIV in India, right? That seems to be what happened there. Or at least that's the claim. I'm no scientist. I can't do it myself, but that's the claim out of India there. HERM weapons machinist. Good evening. How's things back there in the coast of Carolina? Oh, you still got your headlamp on? Mule Team 88 Mark, how you doing? Good to see you. It's been a while. Bat soup and Corona beer, right? Have some Lyme's disease with your Corona. M Long said, "Hello, what's up? Did Reb shave Mule?" I haven't confirmed or denied, but I told him he might want to think about it. I think he's kind of leaning towards not shaving. Uh, Plague cases like here in Los Angeles. Well, plague has been around for in the area. There's a plague up here in the mountains and the squirrels and stuff. It's been around a long time. Oh, HRM says there was a Chinese biodoctor that went missing last year. Interested. You start tying things together, right? You can write a conspiracy movie a mile long. Fight the man. How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining. Mule says remove 2 million breathers and a lot of issues go away. Just depends on which one they are. That's the unfortunate thing. A lot of the ones that need to go aren't the ones that go. You know, there's a lot of people that have put a lot of money into their own survival that need to go away, but that they won't. The wind blew down the good section of the new wall, says Mark. Hey, what's up, Toxic Alicia? How you doing? Alicia's staying on her game, tracking down the pedophiles on her channel. Go check her out if you're not familiar. Most of y'all, I think, know who Alicia is, though. Irish says, what mop level should we be at? I think this is at least mop 2, Irish, I don't have it. I don't think I have it anywhere near me, but way people travel nowadays, I mean, you just never know. And it's like I was saying in the last video, it'll be too late by the time they tell you to do something. When the government tells you, it's probably too late. And every area is going to be a little bit different. It's such a big country and so many different people. There's the Chinese do business everywhere in this country. We got the Amazon warehouse and everything that does all the business back and forth. People go back and forth flying in and out of Reno from China for all these different warehouse companies that are up here. You got the what's the name of that battery manufacturer? Panasonic, Tesla. All of them are tied to the Chinese and Koreans, and there's all that travel that goes back into this area. Granted, most of that is in Reno, but it doesn't take with somebody to go out on a road trip, and drive around and see the sights. And you could have a whole problem even right here in this area. A little less like what you have in San Francisco, LA, the big cities where the local population has been traveling for New Year's, back and forth across the pond or whatnot. I mean, just you never know. She Wolf, how does the China trade deal fit in? If they knew the virus was going to happen, or did they threaten them with the virus as part of the trade deal? Yeah, that's a whole nother level of of questioning right there. Like, is it tied together? Is it a threat or a promise to China that you continue with this trade deal, or you follow through on it, or else you'll get more of this? I mean, you never know. Fight the man. Aaron Cox. Hey, what's going on, Aaron? Good to see you. Aaron says, do we have to obey the constitutional quarantine laws? The unconstitutional ones are the question. Well, and somebody commented on that on the Twitter saying the military will just lock everything down. We all know the military can't even lock down LA in the LA riots. How are they going to quarantine a whole country in the US, right? So that's not going to happen here. Most of your quarantine stuff is all going to be at the local level. All your decision makers for quarantine are all at your state and local level. So um, obviously they're going to try to treat it as individual as they can, and until it gets out of control. If it's out of control, all bets are off. And you know, everybody tries to think of the Walking Dead scenario, but I just don't see that happening. If it gets to that level, people are just going to not not do it. It's going to be everybody for themselves. HRM, how does the transfer eyeballs fall in? You talking about the virus transfer? There's talk that the virus can get in through just like a cold or any other virus, it can go through your mouth, nose, eyes. It can do all that just like a lot of the other ones. Delaware Patriot joined us. What's up? Are you the only one not all that concerned about Corona? You might be, Delaware. I mean, you should be a little bit concerned. Um, Again, there's a lot of people traveling. It is still, I mean, it may not be the end of the world, but it is still something that you don't have immunity for. No, none of us have immunity to it. We haven't built an immunity to it, so you could get very sick very easily. It'll put you out of action. It'll put you on your and you put you in the bed for a couple weeks if you do get it potentially. Um, just because of that alone, it has already shown that it's more deadly than SARS and is infecting people faster than SARS or these other viruses that had a high death rate. So granted, it might be confined to China. It might not. Well, it's obviously not confined completely, but it may not become transmitted in the U.S. yet, but it could be. And if it does, you have a high probability of, at a minimum, being out of action for a week or more, depending on how sick you get. Um, that's still a possibility. So yeah, you're probably one of the worst sicknesses you've ever had. You talk about getting pneumonia and stuff, but that alone should, on your prepper mind, at least, getting the small things in place to avoid getting sick, just like you want to avoid the seasonal flu. Do your hand washing, do your hand sanitizer, all those things. You know, people at work showing up sick, avoid them. Things like that. You definitely want to take those same precautions. Don't go to crowded areas if it comes into your area, or if you think you could potentially be in your area. Like I was talking about last video, the East Coast looks like people are already wearing masks in the airport. That's very unusual for the U.S. for people to publicly wear those masks because it's such a what are you worried about? Like you say, most people aren't worried about it. But I continue to evaluate. Like I said, make your own decisions, but I wouldn't just write it off just yet and see when you get further information here. Midas Welby, what's up? How's your snow up there, Midas? Looks like it's been kind of a. If it's like his here, it's like it's kind of a warm winter. We haven't got a whole lot of storms. We've got enough, I guess you'd say, for some good water, but we need some more snow around here, Midas. Not sure about you. I liked the last video I saw of you, Midas. You're out tooling around in your rig in the snow. I like that. Roger Wilco, what's the mortality rate at this point? Yeah, there's some numbers that go with that, and full spectrum survival is really outlined what the numbers associated with this are. Roger, there's a link below to a GIS map that's done by John Hopkins. It's got the death count right now, um, and they're tracking that in there. But you can find that number. It's higher than the normal influenza, let's put it that way, and it's getting close to SARS, though not quite at the peak. Oh, Midas says 3%. Yeah, I think it's somewhere in there, which is quite a bit higher than your regular flu. Dominus, welcome to the chat. Check out BNO News. Okay, right on. She Wolf more concerned with the stores not having anything. And that goes back to panic buying. Don't panic buy, right? We talked about this last video. The last thing you're doing if you're prepared minded is panic buying. You shouldn't panic at all about anything. I think Fourth Dimension misspoke today on his video. When do we start to panic? Well, we don't panic. We never panic because we've gotten our mindset. First of all, we plan ahead. And second of all, you calmly evaluate. Panic is the last thing you want to do as anybody who's responding to these situations. So don't panic whatever you do. Let everybody else panic by, and you do with what you've got before you panic and join the masses, because then you're no different than them and you put yourself at risk. We don't want to do that. Roger's beginning to think that China, it's an engineered virus. That's what we are talking about kind of towards the beginning. If you missed that, Roger talking about the possibility of an engineered virus. Engineered virus. Very scary. Hey, Andy, what's up? You're late for formation. You've probably already had dinner. I'm just waiting for dinner to get ready and done. Toxic says Ebola still spreading in Congo. Is that right? I haven't seen an Ebola story. It's been quite some time, since before Thanksgiving, I think. They had that whole thing going all summer. But I haven't heard anything about it significantly, but that's a interest. I wouldn't doubt it. Why would it stop spreading, right? Yeah, just be ready. What can you do, right, Delaware? Well, you got to take action though at some point. You got to know when to take action, so you got to stay informed. You stop buying Chinese food in Illinois, says Mule. That may not cut it though. Hey, Jimmy from Tucson, what's up? How you doing? Thanks for checking in. Angel's redacting messages, so I can't read them. Let me catch up here to the beginning. Tommy Boy 9, what is up? What is up? Yeah, HRM, you're right about that. North Carolina has a dozen of the government biolabs, all the whole research triangle, Duke, North Carolina. Yeah, that's all full of stuff like that, right? Instead of the Chinese falling from the sky, it's airborne, says Irish. Yeah, any hole in your body, right? Right, Irish? The virus can share. Jimmy says the coronavirus won't last long. It was made in China. That's pretty good. Or was it made in China? And that's the big question. Was it an attack on China? Was kind of my comment earlier. I mean, if you and to get back to the conspiratorial side, again, if you're the powers that be and you're losing control of your world domination, the easiest way to drop a nuclear bomb on humanity is to go after the largest population in the world in China and start there and work your way out, right? Because they definitely have the population in spades to take care of it, and it's a partially compromised population. They don't have a high healthcare rate. They don't have a lot of, I guess you'd say, healthy people, comparatively speaking, and nutrition wise, and the way people live. A lot of people live on the fringes. A high population. I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of people that are compromised from the get go, and then they get a virus. It's easily spread in the population, and that's what you're going to go after if you're making a weapon out of it, right? Yeah, minus mild winter. I hear you. So I'm starting to catch up here. Well, toxic. Now, there's a good point. Coronavirus is circulating in Utah. There are many different forms of coronaviruses, right? These have been around for a long time, as identified as coronaviruses, I guess you should say. SARS and MERS were types of coronavirus. There was a post on Twitter the other day uh, that there was a coronavirus confirmed in a Southern Nevada in a Vegas hospital, right? Well, yeah, because they have tests for coronavirus for the types like SARS and MERS and these other. There's other types too which have numbers associated with them that are coronaviruses, and that's what they're called officially. This is just why that's why they put the number 2019 coronavirus on this one because it's the same type. It's got a same similar cell structure and everything else, and it'll pop positive on those tests as well. But the other test was for a different coronavirus. So these are different types of viruses have been circulating. They're just not as virulent or as deadly as like the avian flu, SARS, MERS, those things. These other coronaviruses aren't as bad. Tommy Boy, when will your gold and silver rise? Hey, keep buying, Tommy Boy. We haven't talked about that in a while, right? Yeah, silver was up above 18 and then it got crashed down hard earlier in the week and I didn't get a chance to buy. It was like 17.20 again. I was like, I gotta buy. There's a really cool 10-ounce bar, Tommy, that they got at the Golden State Mint that Chris Dwayne did. It's got the Federal Reserve says Den of Thieves on the Federal Reserve Bank. It's a really cool bar. I got the 1-ounce version, but I wanted to get a 10-ouncer because it's just a really cool design. It's a really cool message, you know. But silver is always good for antiviral, right? A little antiviral colloidal silver will go a long way. Antibacterial, right? Midas prepping deletes panic. Exactly. Toxic panic bought water. Oh goodness. Pulled pork. That's what I'm talking about, Andy. Good stuff. I think we're having pork chops. Tommy Boy has over 6 months of food. Good stuff. It's a good start. Delaware. Delaware's trying to troll the trolls in the chat. Nothing less than 20 years will do, right? Well, at some point you're going to start growing your own, right? The kung fu joke. I don't think I've heard the kung fu joke yet, Andy. Not in the chat, at least. Let me go ahead and scroll up. Food Fest. Hey, what's going on? You want to talk about being prepared and not panicking for food? Food Forest is definitely the guy to talk to there. He's always growing stuff out there in the middle of the Great White North. Mark's nephew says 3.5 is accelerating mop drills. They are hating life. Oh, is that right? Yeah, mop drills are not the greatest, right? Not the greatest fun. 1 ounce what, Delaware? 1 ounce of colloidal silver a week? All right, I caught up in the chat. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the comments. And then Saints and Sappers drops in. What's up, Saints? How you doing? Got your mask on? Right on. Cool. Good times. Yeah, it's a full chat, full house. And I did want to mention something that somebody reminded me of. Let me go back here. Um, man, lots of good stuff. Good to see everybody. It's been a while. It's been far too long. But tying it with current events. Oh, so the Brexit. So we've been waiting for Brexit forever, right? Talk about something else that's been ill-timed. Brexit should have happened over a year ago, and they drug their feet to this point. And supposedly today it officially happened. That's going to be something to keep an interesting eye on. France and Paris is virtually burning down. Um, so that kind of leaves Germany alone and unafraid in Europe. It'll be interesting to see how long the EU can last. You want to talk about economic engines? Um, Britain and Germany kind of kept the EU afloat, bailing out Italy and Greece and Spain and those countries that were collapsing. With Britain now gone, you got to think, you're going to talk about a deliberate attack. If you know the EU is going to be weaker economically, who do you attack? You attack your enemy in China, right? Weaken their economy, because this is going to have a lot of effects. It's like, again, get that conspiratorial mindset going. Like, it could just be a extension of the other battles economically, and trying to keep the EU somewhat afloat relatively to their competitors. Roger, you watched some of the celebrating, right? No doubt. Yeah, would be a good time. It's about time the British caught up to our trend. Hey, Adventure's Guide to the Galaxy, what's going on? Thanks for checking in. Oh, you've been buying an ounce of silver a week, says Delaware. Oh, I got you. I got you. Cool. Oh, if Reb hasn't shaved, you're not worried, Mule. Right on. Noble Savage, hey, what's going on? Yeah, France in particular is suffering greatly. You see the videos of the firefighters fighting the police. Like, things are going downhill when those types of organizations go at each other physically. Um, Definitely, if you're a French citizen, you got to be wondering what's next. And what's his name? Who's the leader of France? No, not Trudeau's Canadian. I can't remember, but anyway, he's like Louis the 16th hiding out in his castle. Just trying to dodge the impacts. Noble, what are the odds this is a bioweapon? Right? We talked about that kind of more at the beginning of the chat, Noble. Again, a bioweapon like this is the equivalent of a nuclear weapon, because it can have the same number of deaths, if not more. It can devastate an area, and if it was deliberately put into China, there's the theory that it could have been released from the weapons lab there, the bio lab there, but it also could have been released there intentionally by a foreign subject or by an aggressor to hurt China, or to hurt everybody for that matter. And we were speculating earlier in the chat, if you're the powers that be and you really want to, and you're starting to lose control of everything, and you're ready to just make humanity suffer because you're not in charge, a bioweapon is just as effective as a nuke. And it leaves everything else in place, It leaves all your infrastructure and all your other stuff, just gets rid of a bunch of people. And you can continue to rape and pillage the world as you see fit, if you know what I mean. So it is a theory. It's a good question. Delta Mail, what Macron? Okay, that's the dude, Macron. Macaroni says Adventures Guy. Yeah, Macron, that guy. Yeah, he's kind of unavailable, with all this stuff going on in Paris. Does he even comment on it? I mean, I don't think does the central government even comment on those protests They've been going on for over a year. That's another thing that's been going on for so long. We've kind of put it out of our mind. It's like Brexit. It's like, oh, it's never going to happen. It's like the French protest. It's going to die down. It hasn't, and in the slightest. It's only gotten worse. Crazy stuff. Irish likes the mask with the hood. New Buy American campaign says Saints. Yeah, that's what the was it the Commerce Secretary that said that, Saints, that oh, this Chinese fracas will send more jobs to America. It's like, oh my goodness, are you seriously trying to make positive of this whole thing? All you sniffly people out there haven't got sick yet, doing the right thing, I guess, says Tommy Boy 9. I got a little bit of a head thing going on this week, Tommy Boy, but I haven't been legitimately sick, like out of action in years. Ever since I stopped getting that mandatory military flu shot, I've been pretty doing pretty good. Dragon Lady 24, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. Thanks for checking in. Wow, 30 trillion, is that the new number, Noble? They can't even keep track. It's all going into between the Space Force new boondoggle that's sucking up money, Air Force special projects, black budget, CIA. There's so much money, quote unquote, that's not really there that is just our inflation amount is probably going to be just out of control. And so the whole thing with the economy and the stock market has been inflated to an insane amount, and people are still trying to say, "Oh, Trump economy, Trump economy." It's like, you people, it's the Federal Reserve propping the whole thing up. They're dropping 90 billion a week or more into this market, and it's like it's just going to how long until the markets, we're not directly tied to them, but when those things fall apart, just the commerce around you is going to, you know, a lot of things are going to change. And he's not getting that shot either, right? Right on. All right. Hey, appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for joining. Really, derivatives hyperinflation is a foregone conclusion, right? It's already happening. It's just we haven't, the hyperinflation is happening in the markets with this balloon, right? With this just continuing people chasing the casino that is the stock market, because that's the only way they're ever going to be able to, I guess, gain leverage, you would say. And like that's the average person, our mindset has got to be that, we just can't ever expect to get ahead in that game, because it's just like going to the casino and expecting you're going to win. The house always wins. The central banks are going to win this until everybody gets out of the system and starts just putting a vote of no confidence and dealing in real things, and stop getting just pay off debt. Getting out of the debt game is the best way to fight that. And the more people that do it, the more it's going to hurt them. The more they're going to have to inflate things and make up fake digits on a computer. And eventually, I don't know when, but eventually it'll come down. It's just a law of numbers, because if people pay off debt, they have to make and generate more debt to stay in power. That's how the central bank stays in power, is debt. And the more we take away from their power, the better off we are. All right. Yeah, Irish no mandatory flu shot since the ones back in the day, right? Last flu shot was 96 for Midas. Did they even give them back then? I don't remember getting a mandatory one until, yeah, it had to be late 90s. It was after it was after the debacle in 95, I guess it was. So yeah, mid 90s, late 90s. But yeah. Yeah, whoever size, make them pay. Good luck. All right, Noble Savage. With that, we'll sign off, folks. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing the video, Midas, bringing others into the chat. Again, to go back to the beginning for the really conspiratorial side of things, to just getting the brain housing work, because there's information out there. Do things line up in a certain way or not? And you got to evaluate those things to determine where we're really going, right? Vegaborg, we see you, buddy. What's going on? Good to see you. So y'all know what to do. Prep hard, live free.